Alright, so this video serves the purpose to explain the menus and to go a bit into depth how we plan to do it in our game. Now, in VTOLVR, we have, when you join the game, when you started, you have just a basic overview of like a flight carrier top, and more importantly a start button and this recenter seat button, which eventually leads you to this. So as you can see, here we have a relatively empty meeting room. This doesn't matter, but we will need some version of this. So basically just a screen in front of the player that at which he can adjust his settings and so on, and recenter a seat. The recenter seat button just puts me back in the seat at a set height with my eye level. Now in this menu, in the settings, we can do this very much the same. So just have some kind of button that says settings, and then here we have things like if it's full screen or not, if it's entirely turned off, if we don't need it to be displayed on the PC, or anything else that is present in these menus, as you can see now. Yes, and on the bottom here you also have the bindings menu, which lets you bind real life things, I believe. Yeah, so select a controller. So if you have a HOTAS of sorts, which is physical, and you don't have to use your controllers, you can bind them there, which is a nice to have for the future. You can also do a mic test, which is quite useful, but I would just put this in the audio settings, where you can also select your standard audio device if we were to add it. Now, in VTOLVR they go by pilots, so you can use a pilot which basically has your saved playtime and what vehicles you use and so on, but we will not need this. We will basically just need a server browser of sorts, or a single player, and later on the mission and map editor, which I do hope to add in the future, or some version of it at least. Now here, once you select the pilot, here as well you can edit colors to change the appearance of the character. It's always the same character, but you can change the colors. Now you have multiplayer or the Steam Workshop. Steam Workshop I would rather have in via the Steam Workshop itself, where you just go on the game, go into Steam, or on Steam, go onto the game, and then go onto Steam Workshop, and then you subscribe to the mods and they appear in the game. So you don't have to select them in here, like they do here. And oh yeah, one thing that they do have here are liveries, which are different skins for the planes, which is also nice to have for the future for our tank game. Scenarios for the single player and campaigns for the single player, which are basically like scenarios are single missions and campaigns are an array of missions with different briefings in between them. And then there's also multiplayer campaigns, which you can play with, of course, more players. Now, here you can select the vehicle. We will not be doing this. Instead, you will just be able to join a server, then select a role, if anything. Possibly we even leave roles out. But it is a possibility to have like an engineering role or a medic role and so on further on. But for now, it's practically irrelevant for us. We will just have the mission, and then you join in the mission, and then you can get into the vehicle and drive it around. No matter which role you have. And they also have tutorials here, which I suppose for us would just be under single player missions. And then multiplayer would be our server browser. Now if I were to select the vehicle here, I can select a mission. This would be under our mission tab. They have a picture along with it, with the title and a simple description, which I think is a pretty good idea. Unless the picture is too much of a hassle, then I would just get rid of it. This, I expect to just list the missions that are saved on your local file browser. So if you want to do make custom missions or import custom missions off of the Steam Workshop, or just allow them to move them into that mission folder, and that way you could use them however you want. Now, if I go to, for example, Quick Flight, here I have, so these would be the different campaigns. If I do Quick Flight, I have a few missions under the campaign, which I can play. Like Free Flight, where it gives me a given budget for my equipment, and of the jet, and a quick description and so on. Now, if I select it, it will give me a briefing with my squad name over here, and it would give me a picture of the situation plus a description of what's happening, and then I could switch through the pages with next and previous. In this case, it's empty because it's just a free flight. And then I move on to configure. This is something we wouldn't need at this stage. This is to select which armaments you bring into the mission. In our case, it would be which variant of the tank we would take. So if we want to take one with a Crow's turret or not, if we want to take one with a M2 Browning instead of a coaxial machine gun, and so on and so on. Now, this selection screen is useful for us though, because even if we don't have these add-ons at the start, we do still have different ammo types for the loader, and these can be selected here. I would like to say that of the limited spots that we have in the loaders rack, you could say these should be MPAT or whatever we decide on, or APFSDS, and then you can bring whatever load is necessary for the given mission. Now here you can select, in this game, what kind of fuel tanks you want to bring, like these big ones, or different missiles, chaff flares, which sensors, different rockets, whatever, how much fuel you want to bring. We could also do that for our different fuel tanks, and each costs a different amount of money. We can implement this feature as well to impose some limitation on the players later on. Here you can also limit the amount of flares and chaff you want to bring for countermeasures. And here you can also select the libraries, which are different colors of the jet, as you can see. And, for example, an American one. And then you can press launch to start the mission. This will put you in an intermediary space where you can just recenter your seat, nothing else really. As you can see, you align your seat with the virtual chair. And then you have this helmet which you grab and put on to start the mission. We don't really need this, because I believe that it's smarter to do it the way that I'm about to show you. Now, if I am in this jet, I have to turn the main battery on, close the canopy, turn the APU on, so this stays on. Now, the way the buttons and everything works in this, first of all, if I want to change my control surfaces, which is nice to have on this one, and we will have to come up with a solution to maybe position the player in a different spot instead of moving the control surface. Now, if I were to move this control surface, I can click on this auto button, and then I can just freely move it around however I want to have it. And then click it again once I'm in a good position to lock it. I can also use these buttons to manually move it wherever I want it to be. Now the joystick itself has an interesting control scheme. I believe it functions similar to how I explained in the past. Now, no matter where I put my hand, if I put it close to it and I grip, it latches onto the stick, and however my orientation of my hand is, it gets transferred perfectly onto this joystick. Now, if I were to move my hand from here, say to here, and then twist it normally, it will still function the same. My assumption is that the 0 point of this stick, like if I have my hand here, it's here. If I move my hand up, it'll still stay bound to the hand, and that way if I move my hand around, it will always have the correct orientation, no matter where I move my hand around in the space like I'm doing right now. Without any multiplication of the forces making it uncontrollable. If I move my finger on my joystick and move my joystick around, it will also display an appropriate animation, plus the same with the trigger. Now, the way the menus function in this is, here I can trigger the power to the display. Now, they have two two types of controls in this mainly, which are switches, which as soon as you get close to it, it displays what you have your finger close to, and then goes into this pointing pose, which I'm not doing right now. And then as soon as I press the trigger, he snaps onto it, and then when I turn my hand in the appropriate direction, he switches it on and off. Now with buttons, it works similarly, so when you move your hand close, it reads out what it is, plus which button you need to press to trigger it. In this case, it's just trigger. And then when you press it, it snaps quickly to the surface of the button, and then immediately back to where the actual hand position is. Makes it very obvious what you're pressing. Now, as you can see, if I go to the side, it still snaps in the direction of the button. Now, the way that the game menu functions in this is if I go to game, I have a very simple menu of exit the mission, restart the mission, quick save, or rather quick save menu, which just gives me a save button or a load button once I've saved. Here, as you can see, it saves and tells me the last save, how long ago it was, and how I can load it. This is quite useful in single player missions. And then I also have a recenter seat button, where it says sit comfortably and press B to recenter. So I move to a good spot, press the button, it recenters me, all is good, even if I drift. And then home to go back. We can implement this pretty easily in all of our menus. Now, they also have options to change the units displayed, for example the altitude, speed, and so on, distance. And what is also relatively important to us is navigation for the commander. Now, the way they've done this here is, of course, they have all of the buttons on the side. We will have to come up with some solution, some limited version of this at least, where we can do similar things. Now here they let you, these are basically your display controls, so you can zoom in, zoom out. You go up and down. As you can see, once I press the up, down, left or right button, it gives me a crosshair, which shows me the exact position where stuff is, or where the center of it is. And if I press reset, it recenters onto my character, or rather the player position. And if I press mode, I can either north it or relock it to the way my jet is looking. Now, I can also send GPS targets for GPS guided bombs, for example. Can set target alt to set a position, and then I can like set a path to that position. I can set a fuel waypoint to be like once I've reached this waypoint I can go and refuel, or rather this gives me a waypoint to the refueling station. In this case it would be this plane which lets me refuel. RTB shows me the closest base that I can return to base to. I can, in this case it would be this carrier. Objective waypoint sets the direct path to the next objective if there is one in the mission. And here I have a list of GPS targets, which I can set to guide my bombs onto. And they have a very interesting thing here, which I believe is also going to be the way that we control our map, which is called Sensor of Interest. Now, if I select this, it gives me a green line around the map, which is not what we're gonna need. But what it mainly does is once I grip my joystick, I can use the joystick on my controller to move around the map, as you can see now. And this lets me very easily select targets. It snaps to targets as well. And then I can, or some at least, and then I, in our game, would be able to go to maybe a list of symbols I can place or waypoints I can set, and then select them to be like, here is infantry, or here's an armored column moving, and maybe even draw lines and do similar things. We'll have to look into that later on. Now, Aside from that, they also have comms. We will not need this. Or at least we could use a version of this to make our rearm work, because the way that they do it is, here we have the ground command. So if you are on ground at a base, you can request a rearm once you go onto it.
Copy. Coming over to the rearming station.
So it requests you to go to a rearming station, which could also be used in our case, and then you move your plane, or in this case our tank, to said rearming point, which would be marked in some way, maybe with some flares or similar. And then once you press this button, it moves you to that that rearm menu that we saw at the beginning. And that way you can rearm whatever with whatever budget you have left, or maybe we can also limit the amount of rounds that are present in a given forward operating base or rearm point. And then maybe implement some logistics later on. Okay. I also have some debug stuff here, showing the speed and rotation and so on, altitude, and a flight log for whatever else is necessary, like mission status, or mission like this mission was failed, this side mission was not completed, and so on. And they also have a list of equipment that's on the plane, which we won't need. The Abrams does not have any track of how many rounds are in the tank. Could show the amount of rounds left for the coax, but I do not believe that we will need this because it's displayed in the UI of the gunner, you know. They also have the spectator camera, which is quite interesting, and I believe is for the future definitely going to be a useful thing for us. Now, what it does is it lets you add cameras, or rather a version of camera, to spectate the gameplay. So right now, if I change the modes, I have smooth look, which just smooths out the vision of whoever is playing. A camcorder, which spawns a little camera here, which you can grab and position however you want to film you. A stationary picture to just film you from the outside. Fly along in this case, to follow you in like a third-person perspective, but also move. A fixed, which is just a third-person perspective. Chase, which is a third-person perspective but further away, moving. And then there's some preset views which have been attached to the surrounding area, so when you fly past the top of a mountain, for example, it tracks you. Now if I were to start this to display it, here is the camcorder. Now I can grab and move my hand close to the camcorder like any other button, press trigger, and then move it around. I can position it wherever I want to, even outside the canopy, so it can film me from the outside. Can also do stationary, as you can see, which gives me a stationary picture, fly along, fixed picture, chase picture, and preset views as discussed. And then we're back to smooth look. Here I can also change the FOV, automatically change the FOV, turn the audio off, and so on and so on. Auto reset. I can press end to stop it. I can also press start and display the view to see what the camera is seeing. Yes. Here we also have a list of objectives. Also very useful for game's sake. Not sure if we're gonna need this though. And then they also have some external cameras on the jet by default. Also not present on the Abrams. Now targeting pods, GPS targets and so on we don't need. Radar display not needed, jammer not needed. And the home button just takes you back to this screen. Preferably always in the same position, so if I go to any setting, the home button is always in the top left. Lets me easily remember that this is where I need to push to get back home. On the options, you also have the joystick mode to change it to like a center or side, and the sensitivity and night vision settings, change brightness and so on. If you want to, we will not need this for now. And I believe this would be it. For anything else, if you get close to it, it always changes the animation of your hand to let you know that you're about to interact with it, and then also tells you which button you want to push, like I said, to make it happen. In this case, grip, to grip the fuel, and then you can move it up and down. And anytime you press any of the other buttons, you can it gets displayed as well. Yes. Okay. I believe this about covers it. If you want to exit the mission, you just press onto the game menu and then exit, return to main. And this puts you back here into the mission select or server select, whatever you want to do. Now, if you want to decide to put someone into like the loadout, or rather the role select menu or into the main menu, for now we will leave as is. Okay,